Let's open it. And you're going to turn to a passage that you've heard many times. But my prayer is that you hear it in a new way and in a different way, and that you don't go into some religious mode. Because sometimes there's a lot of great things about religion, but there's a lot of things that are not so great about religion. How many of you would agree? We have great pastors all over the world that are giving their lives to be able to teach what they're passionate about. We have more churches than we've ever had, ever in history, and we are more lost than we've ever been. We have more churches online and offline. We have more worship leaders. We have more teachers, evangelists, so-called prophets than there's ever been in the earth. And yet, we're more of a mess than we've ever been. So somehow something's not working. Something's failing. And something has to change. I've had the beautiful privilege of preaching in some of the largest churches in the world. I've preached at Hillsong. I've preached for Benny Hinn, Dr. Morris Cirillo. I didn't go to seminary. How I got there, I'll tell you another time. But it's everything you're going to learn throughout this entire weekend that led to those particular places. And as I've had the privilege to do that, and you know my past, former homeless, destitute, broken, filthy woman. But I had a desire. My desire was to tell people about him. And I'd be willing to teach business as long as I get the chance to tell them about him. So I'll go ahead and give you what you want. I'm going to give you what I want. And that is to expose the truth. And the best way I know it, again, I'm a broken vessel. I don't want you to take any of the words I say. I want you to test everything I say. You need to search for it yourself. So as we go to turn to Psalms 23, that you've heard many times, you've probably read books about this, it's time to hear it with new ears, from a new perspective. Because we're going to talk about leadership. There's a team of us that just came from Israel. Where are you guys? Stand up. All of these people standing and myself went to Israel together, including, I don't know, there was 44 of us that were in Israel. And when we were there, what did we see everywhere? Shepherds. Shepherds everywhere. Every day, we saw shepherds with their sheep every single day. Wherever we were in the nation of Israel, we came across shepherds. I've been there 7, 8 times, and I've never seen this many shepherds. I certainly didn't see them every single day, everywhere we went. But on this trip, we saw them. Go ahead and sit down. So on this trip, I began to just pray about that and seek about that. And before I go there, for those of you that are new, I did not grow up in a religious home. I grew up in an atheist home, and my mom was an agnostic. My father was an atheist, and he particularly hated Christians, hated them with a passion. He spoke evil of them constantly. Said you can't trust them. They're stupid. They can't think for themselves. They're just a bunch of fools following some stupid thing. And so growing up like that, and then you already heard about my past of the violence and the abuse and all of this stuff. When I was 13 years old, my father that raised me went through my nightstand and found some love letters from a boy by the name of Travis Sluter, who I'm trying to find, but can't find him. So Travis Sluter, we had just moved from Southern California to a place called Palo Cedro, California, 8 miles east of Redding. And I started in a brand new school in August. And in October, for whatever the reason is, my dad ransacks my bedroom and he starts reading these love letters from Travis Sluter. I come home, my bedroom is just upside down, right? Like all the drawers are all turned out. He just ransacked everything. And he said to me, screaming at me, you and your sisters are going to a private school starting tomorrow. I'm ripping you out of this. I don't want you to end up pregnant like your mother did. You would have thought I would have connected that dot right there, but I didn't. I never even realized that what he said was that my mom was pregnant out of wedlock, right there. I don't want you to get pregnant like your mother. So you're gonna be in a school with 8 kids in your class. You're gonna have to wear dresses every day and you're gonna be watched. Like, okay. So the very next day, imagine this. My mom broke her neck when I was 11 years old, and I became the caretaker of my mother, changing her diapers, getting her dressed, trying to put her makeup on. I took over the cleaning and the cooking in the house when I was 11 years old, 11, 12, 13, 14. These are the years that I did that. And I loved to do it. I absolutely loved to serve my mom like that. My personality is very analytical, and yet I love to serve. So the second part of my personality is a pearl, as you learned earlier. So my mom breaks her neck, and all of a sudden we went from welfare to a settlement. She had a malpractice suit that happened, and she received a settlement. And in that settlement, that started to come in small installments. So right away, we went from this tiny little 800 square foot house in Redondo Beach, California, on Grant Avenue, to then we moved to Cypress, California, and we all had our own bedrooms. We had a 3-bedroom house that they rented, and it had a backyard, and it was in a nice neighborhood, and they paid cash for a new Chevy Citation. How many remember those cars? they bought us. I can't remember if it was stick shift or not, but it was blue on blue. Remember the two-tone blue? It was like a dark blue and a light blue. Totally, that was the car. So shut up. We just went back in time for a minute. Your mouth said it all. Okay. Anyway, it's like, what the heck is a Chevy Citation? It obviously didn't work very well because they don't make it anymore. But anyway, so they bought a Chevy Citation. So all of a sudden they have money, and now they're spending it, right? And they're buying clothes, and we're not eating pasta all the time, but now they're buying chicken and steak sometimes. Do you understand? So over the course of the next 3 years, they started upgrading their lifestyle, step by step upgrading their lifestyle. So we went to this rental house that had 3 bedrooms, and then they moved us to Palo Cedro, and they rented another house that had a 4-bedroom house, and it had 2 whole bathrooms. Okay, so then they moved into another house, and they bought this house. They bought a 3,000 square foot house. Could you imagine? That's like 4 times the house that I grew up in, right? 4 times the house. So within 4 years, I was 14 when they bought that house, and I was 11 when my mom broke her neck, right? So that's how long it took for the money to come in, right? So now they have money to send us to a private school. And by the way, I moved out when I was 16. So I only lived in that house for 2 years with money for 2 years, okay? Actually, like I said, they started to get installments when I was 12 years old. So from 12 to 16, there was a very different lifestyle than being on welfare. So they had the money now to send us to a private school, right? So it's a private little Christian school. My dad is an atheist. Hello? My dad's an atheist. My mom's an agnostic. The only private school in Palo Cedro, California is a Christian school. And we have to wear dresses, okay? So it's October of 1982. It's October of 1982, just a couple years ago. And they have a chapel the very first week that I'm in that school, right? So I want you to imagine this. My parents bought cars. So now they went from Chevy Citation to a brand new Jeep to a Cadillac with the butt cut off. Do you guys remember the Cadillac Seville where the butt's cut off? Okay. So you have the butt cut off of this Cadillac. It's black. It's Palomino interior. It's got windows that roll up all by themselves by pushing a button. Okay, right? Versus Alice was our family car that I grew up with. It was a hand-me-down given to us by a cousin, who was a big old white station wagon with the woodies on the side, wood paneling on the side, okay, the wood paneling, and it had 2 huge rusted burn marks on the hood because the engine blew up. So they replaced the engine, but they kept the hood, right? So imagine, we called her Alice. The name of the car was Alice, and it just floated right down the road. The windshield wipers didn't work, so whenever it would rain, there's my mom hanging out with her 280 pounds with a rag. hand on the wheel. Her arm going like this, okay? So there's my mom. Okay, so this is, everything's fogged up in the car because the defrost, there is no defrost, do you understand? To a Cadillac Seville. Well, now my parents have an endless supply of drugs because they think they have an endless supply of money. So I want you to picture this. So my room is ransacked. The next day we're going to a new school. That day we had to go buy a dress. I was a tomboy. I played basketball, man. I'm a baller. I have to wear a dress and sandals. Like, where's my high top tennis shoes? I'm still a bit of that tomboy thing, but I've learned how to clean myself up a little bit. So anyway, I want you to imagine this. It's 7:30 in the morning. You're in a private Christian school. And here comes a Cadillac with the windows rolled up, and there's nothing but smoke in that car. My parents would smoke these Cheech and Chong joints. How many remember Cheech and Chong? If you're too young, Google it. Ask Rabbi Google. He'll tell you exactly what a Cheech and Chong joint is. It's about this big and about this long, okay? They'd roll these big old Cheech and Chong joints and smoke it in the car with their 3 daughters in the back seat, hotboxing us. On the way to school at 7:30 in the morning, the Christian school, it's our first day. How many of you have ever been around a smoker who smokes cigarettes? What do you smell like after you've been with somebody that smokes cigarettes? What do you smell like? Tell me, what do you smell like when you're in secondhand smoke? You smell like you smoked the cigarette yourself. Now I want you to imagine my parents have the windows rolled up. Some good. You excited, kids, about your first day of school? Sure, Dad. Because they full-on hotboxed us for a 20-minute drive every day to school. So this is a private Christian school, and it's one of those Christian schools that it's a little church with a little steeple. Okay, smells like mold in the little building. And they have 2 trailers on the property that are also filled with mold. These suckers would be shut down at this point in today's day and age, right? So there's just 2 single wide trailers that someone donated. Okay, do you hear me? So here the cars roll around to drop all their kids from school. We get out the car. Could you imagine? Smoke. We walk into that school totally smelling high. And I'm sure we were. I'm sure we were. So, the 3rd day of school, it's a Wednesday, whatever the day was, we have a chapel. So now we get to meet in the building instead of the trailer. And there's that pulpit thing, this wooden pulpit thing in the front, and this blonde woman who's opened up the Bible, which I didn't know what it was, but she's just talking out of some book. Okay, do you understand? I grew up in an atheist home. God was a cuss word. God was a cuss word. So she's standing in front of this thing, and she starts talking and reading stuff and teaching stuff. And I began to cry in the back of the room. And I just start crying, weeping uncontrollably. I am like 3rd day into school. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is very embarrassing. So now that class, chapel is over, and I'm just sunk in my seat, and I'm just doing one of these, right? Like I'm trying to hide myself. Come on, I'm the new kid in a class of 8, and no one wants to know who I am. No one wants to talk to me. I didn't realize until about a year ago that we smelled like weed. I just realized it a year ago. No joke. No joke. So I can only imagine why they didn't want to know us. Yeah. I can't, like before I was like, gosh, nobody ever wants to talk to us. Like none of them wanted to befriend us. If I put myself in their shoes and knowing that the kids smelled like weed and the parents didn't go to church, but it's a struggling school, so they'll take anybody's money. They'll take anybody's money. So, interestingly enough, the woman that was teaching happened to be the principal of the school. Her name was Leilani Guido. She came over to me afterwards. She pulled up a chair and she says, do you want to meet Jesus? Do you want to accept him into your heart? And I said, yes. I don't know what I was saying yes to. She said, can I pray with you? I said, sure. And she prayed with me. I snotted my way through that thing. And that day, he really became my everything. That day when I repeated those words, something changed inside of my heart. Something happened, and I had a peace wash over me. All the stress from home seemed to have washed away that day. When I would go home, my parents would be screaming at each other, doing drugs, staying up all night, snorting cocaine. I would run off into the field with my Bible. I wouldn't be able to understand anything that I was reading because I was dyslexic, and I would just sit and I would talk to him at 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old. I met some Christian kids and who I thought really believed in this, and they were acting just like my parents, except for my parents were honest. They didn't try to hide their drugs. They didn't try to act like something that they weren't. They at least had integrity. But these Christian kids, they had no integrity. They were quoting scripture in school and quoting scripture at youth group and smoking weed and drinking and having sex on the weekends. So I ended up getting pregnant at 17, out of wedlock, by the deacon's son. And here came all the gossip. Oh, poor. We'll call him Bob. I call everyone Bob. His name wasn't Bob. Poor guy. She must have seduced him. Because he never would have done that. Poor guy. Now he's going to be stuck with a child. His parents told me, you guys aren't getting married. They were the ones that orchestrated an adoption behind my back. Feeling like it was the best thing, telling me, what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to help this child. You're giving this kid a bad life. It's not the kid's fault. There's a family out there that can't have kids, and they want kids, and they're in a financial position. What are you going to do, raise the kid on welfare? You and Brent aren't getting married. It's not happening. Why hurt a child? And this was the kicker in the closing line. What if your father touches your child the way he touched you? And I was living with them. And I began to have nightmares. Sweet Christian people, high up elders, they didn't want their son's life to be ruined. They didn't want their life to be ruined. Maybe they really believed that somebody else raising their firstborn grandchild was going to be a better idea. Whatever the shame was in our tiny little town of 700, I brought a lot of shame on a lot of people getting pregnant at 17, professing to be a Christian. So April 30th, my baby was born, and she went home with 2 perfect strangers. And I went home wanting to kill myself. So I walked away from God when I was 18. And I said, God, if I have to be like your people, I want nothing to do with you. Your people suck. And a bunch of other 4-letter, very colorful words that I learned since I was 2. People are lame. And if being a Christian means being like them, I'm out. I'm out. So for the next several years, I did every heathen thing possible. I found weed, the thing I said I'd never smoke. I found alcohol, the thing I said I'd never do. I started living a life that I should have never lived. Those were my choices. And on my birthday, March 2nd of 1993, something very beautiful and powerful happened. We went to Hawaii, Hans and I, boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, went to Hawaii for a vacation for my birthday. And his friend Chris, his best friend, picks us up from the airport and says, hey, Damien, who was Hans's financial mentor, kind of like a dad since he was 12 years old because he grew up without a dad, he invited us to church, and I just, remember that horse I was talking about? I'm like, there is no blankety-blank way that I'm going there. That is disgusting. Those people are stupid. And I just, wow. Teaching acceptance. I accept you as long as you're not a Christian. If you're a Hindu, I love you. If you're a Muslim, I love you. If you're a Baptist, get out of my face. No joke. If you're an atheist, come on, I love you. If you're a metaphysician, I love you. You go to church? Oh, get out of my face. Why? The rejection I experienced from the church was far more painful than any beating I had, was more painful than the molestation, was more painful than the drugs. I was vulnerable, and I thought I was in a place with people I could trust. I thought I was safe for the first time in my life. And when it turned out I wasn't safe, hatred filled my heart. And I judged them for judging me. And the fruit of that was nasty. So Chris is like, dude, chill out. His wife died 3 weeks ago. Just out of respect, we could go to church. I screamed, I cussed, no, I'm not doing it. And then finally I yielded and went, okay, fine, we'll go. So we went. Sat somewhere near the back, put my feet on the seats in front of me, sitting there with my arms crossed. Yeah. Bunch of losers, bunch of weirdos. People can't think for themselves. Get a real life. And then this message hit my head. You're going to get bad karma. At your next first steps, you're going to have 5 jerks just like you. You reap what you sow, girl. Like, I elbowed Hans. Give me a piece of paper and a pen. He's rummaging. So I'm going to sit forward. I'm going to start taking some notes and acting like I'm interested to sow good karma. So here we go. Wow, that's some good. Chris elbows me. He's like, dude, you teach that at First Steps. I effing know. I didn't know that was in the effing Bible. Could you imagine being at church with a guest speaker from Los Angeles and you're in Hawaii, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and you have someone dropping F-bombs in the service? It's like this girl right here talking and saying all kinds of nasty words all around all y'all, and y'all can hear it. And the evangelist is in town. Could you imagine? That was me. I effing know. I didn't effing know that was in the Bible. That's some good. This went on for the whole sermon. Hans and Chris, but dude, you teach that at First. Wow. At the very end of the message, he asked the people to stand and to repeat these words after him. and I lost it. Just like I did October of 1982. I just lost it. And that night, I rededicated my life to my Father in heaven through the story of his Son who gave his life. And I've been walking strong with him since March 2nd of 1993, which is just a couple years ago. That isn't to say I haven't made a lot of mistakes. That isn't to say I haven't failed miserably. That is to say that I've received his love and his deliverance in a lot of places, and I still have a lot to go. So I hope that catches some of you up. Nobody can take what he has given me away. And I am very confident to say that apart from him, I can do nothing good. Anytime I step away from him, I do nothing good. But as long as I step and walk with him, and with this particular passage that we're going to talk about, leadership, that I stay within his lead, I'm blessed. When I step outside of that lead, I'm in trouble. And I mean big trouble. How many of you have been in big trouble before? I have, many times. And I've also stayed within him and following him, and I've also walked myself into trouble. Why? Because he was training me through the trouble. He was maturing me through the trouble. That's what he does. That's what a loving father does, is walks us through those challenges, those traumas, those tragedies, so that we can get stronger and that we can mature and that we can lack nothing. So Psalms 23, how many of you are familiar with it? I'm reading from the version called Scriptures. This keeps all the Hebrew names in the Bible. It didn't change them to English names. It also kept the name of God. Every time the name of God shows in the original transcript, it kept it in here. Versus the Greeks took God's name out of the Bible. They gave him the title God, and they have thousands of gods. So they basically demoted him with giving him a title, a name that fit all the rest of their other gods, including the name of Jesus. There is no J in Hebrew. There is no J. They changed his name to Jesus, which was after Zeus. So Yeshua is his name. He's Hebrew, born Hebrew, raised Hebrew, Jewish is what he is. And he has a Jewish name. Say who what? Thank you. And it's still Zeus, isn't it? Zeus. Exactly. Which sounds like Zeus. Sounds like Zeus. What I'm saying is why would we take a Bible and change people's names? Why would we take the name of God out of the Bible? Why? I appreciate that someone translated the Bible from Hebrew to Greek to English. I appreciate that we have it and we live in a time where there's a printing press and we can read it ourselves. I also appreciate the fact that we can actually learn Hebrew to go and see the original text ourselves. So I'm going to say God's name because it's in here. And King David said his name a lot. King David actually said his name more than any other person written in this book. King David did. So we're going to start right here. Yahweh, thank you, by the way, for giving us that lesson, by the way. Yahweh is my shepherd. I do not lack. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He turns back my being. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Only gladness and loving commitment follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Yahweh to the length of days. Why read this? What do we learn about it? My question to you is, who is your shepherd? Who is leading you? Now, I know your religious mind wants to say, well, Yahweh is my good shepherd. Really? Is he? Let's see. As we just read this, what time of life is David obviously in? One of the greatest kings, by the way, and I learned from a mentor 31 years ago that if I want to be successful, I study successful people. I study success if I want to become successful. Well, this book is filled with a bunch of dead successful people that people are still talking about. So their success far exceeds, I believe, anyone on the planet today. I am not so sure that 4,000 years from now, people are going to be talking about Steve Jobs. I am not so sure that 4,000 years from now, that people are going to be talking about Donald Trump. I'm not so sure that 4,000 years from now, people are going to be talking about the Clintons. But I do know that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua, people are still talking about them. It's been 4,000 years since they dead. The dead, so dead. And they even come from a little tiny nation far away from here. That's the size of New Jersey. And yet the whole world is talking about Abraham, Yitzhak, Isaac, Yaakov. They're still talking about them. How many of you say they're pretty darn successful? Pretty darn successful. If their names are still being talked about, they are still being studied 4,000 years later. That's a level of success, and I'm pretty darn sure that there's no one on the earth today that someone's going to be talking about 4,000 years from now, especially from a foreign nation. So I believe in studying success. And when I look at this with David, what is going on in his life? What tells us, is he in a happy, wonderful, joyous time? Or what kind of a time is he in? He's in trouble. He's in trouble. He's not in a time that's glorious and wonderful. It's obvious why. What tells us that he's going through trouble right now? The valley of the shadow of death. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I what? Fear no evil. So I have a question for you. Who is your shepherd? Who is leading you? Who is leading you, and who are you following? How do you know? Well, let me ask you. If you're walking through trouble, what does it say? Yahweh is my shepherd. I do not lack. Yahweh is my shepherd. I do not lack. Yahweh is my shepherd. I do not lack. Tell me. Many of you think you're lacking. But when you're walking with the Good Shepherd, you lack nothing. So what shepherd are you following? Did you say that sucks? Yeah. He makes me lie down. He makes me lie down. He makes me lie down in green pastures. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to picture lying down in a green pasture. Picture it. What do you feel? You feel rest. What do you feel? Peace, calmness, anxiety, fear, doubt. Can you open your eyes now? He makes me lie down in green pastures. You mean you're not over capacity? He makes me lie down in green pastures. You mean you're not freaking out, frustrated, screaming at people? You're not staying up at night worried about how you're going to pay your bills? He makes me lie down in green pasture. He leads me beside still waters. He's a shepherd. Picture yourself, you're the sheep. He makes you lie down in green pastures, which means what? He says, I have no lack. So what is green pastures? It's food, surrounded by it. And wait, what else is there? Water. He leads me beside still waters. What shepherd are you following? What shepherd are you following? He leads me in paths of righteousness. For his name's sake. When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I don't fear anything. When I get diagnosed with cancer, I don't fear anything. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Which means what? Why does his rod and staff comfort him? What's the rod and the staff? It's protecting. I'm protected. When I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because your rod and your staff, it comforts me. I'm protected. You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. There's people stabbing you in the back. There's people slandering your name. There's people gossiping. There's people making up stories. There's people dividing. There's people believing lies about you. And here it is, man, your heart is in toil because of the lying that is happening. Your heart's all torn up. Which shepherd are you following? Which shepherd are you following? Because this says, you spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. Your rod and your staff, you're protecting me and you're honoring me. You're protecting me and you're honoring me. You're blessing me in the face of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, which, by the way, that right there, anointed means mishach. Same word, Mashiach. Mashiach is anointed one. Mishach means to smear. That's what it means. Literal translation in the Hebrew means smear. With oil. It's literally what it means. What we have turned it to mean in our religious world is something very different. Very different. In our religious culture, we look at somebody that is of the same faith as ours, that's a Christian, who's good at something, especially if it's good at teaching and speaking, and we say they are anointed. A new program in our head. God has anointed you. But if I'm at work and I'm not a part of the religious world and I'm good at something, what do they say? You're just good at that. How does someone get good at something? Practice, skill, learning, trial, error, diligence, excellence. You're good at something. But if I'm good at something at church, I'm anointed. If I'm good at something at work, I'm just good at something. But the literal translation means smear. What it means when you smear something with oil is you're setting it apart for special use. In the Bible, we anoint something to say, this is set apart for special use and it can't be used any other way. Like a bride wears a wedding dress on her wedding day. She doesn't wear it on Monday. She doesn't wear it to work. She doesn't wear it to church. She only wears it when? On her wedding day. Do you understand? That is holy. The word set apart, we've translated, the Greeks translated, the English translated, the word set apart to holy. We then have given the word holy a totally different definition. The word holy in all of our religious minds means sinless. But holy does not mean sinless. Because when you read the Bible, you see all the things that they say that are holy, like a building, like a cloth, like bread, oil. It's set apart. The word is set apart. It's not sinless. Terrible translation. Terrible translation. So same with anointed. We've given anointed a totally different definition. Anointed means that it sets something apart. Wait, it proves it. You spread before me a table in the face of my enemies. You set me apart in the face of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Only goodness and loving commitment follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Yahweh to the length of days. So he's in a bad season. It could be at the time where his son Absalom tried to take over his kingdom. It's very possible that this was around that same time. I don't really know what it could have been during the time that his father-in-law was chasing him down. It could have been the time that his father-in-law is gossiping behind his back and trying to kill him. It's very possible that this was written at the time where we all just came from En-Gedi, which is in the desert, in this mountainous area, and he's hiding in a cave, trying to protect himself and hiding out for his life. Because his father-in-law has turned his friends against him. His father-in-law has turned against him. His father-in-law turned his wife against him. And now he's hiding out. And what does he say? During this hard time, so I'm going to ask you a question. Who is your shepherd? Who are you following? Who is it? Are you being shepherded by the King of the universe, the creator of the heavens and the earth? Are you being shepherded by the King of glory? Are you really being shepherded by Yahweh? That's his name. Are you being shepherded by him? Or are you being shepherded by fear? Are you being shepherded by regret, shame, guilt? Are you being shepherded by greed? How do we know? Turn over to Jeremiah 50, verse 6. Which in Hebrew is Yirmiyahu. I love that name, Yirmiyahu. 50, verse 6. Here's what it says. My people have been wandering sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray, turning them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. My people have been wandering sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray, turning them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill, from high to low. They have forgotten their resting place. All who found them have devoured them, and their adversaries have said, we are not guilty, because they have sinned against Yahweh, the home of the righteousness, and the expectation of their fathers, Yahweh. Go to Ezekiel 34, chapter 1. So now we're going to look at the difference between a good shepherd, following a good shepherd, and not following a good shepherd. Ezekiel 34, chapter 1. And the word of Yahweh came to me saying, verse 2, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy against the leaders of Israel. Shepherds, leaders. Thus said the Master Yahweh to the shepherds, woe to the shepherds of Israel who have been feeding themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? Let's go back to Psalm 23. What does it say? Yahweh is my shepherd, what? I shall not want. What did Ezekiel just say? The shepherds are not feeding the flock. The shepherds are, okay, so let's look at this. So what's a good shepherd? What does a good shepherd do? What does a good leader do? They feed their flock. What else? They protect their flock. They provide for their flock. What else? Huh? Fresh water, peaceful places, not overrunning them. Did you hear me? Not overdriving them. Comfort, exactly. The good shepherd comforts. The good leader comforts. The good leader leads them down a path that is peaceful. Are you hearing me? A good shepherd leads them by still waters, provision, protection. Are you writing this down? The good shepherd leads them down paths of righteousness. Righteousness is right standing, not sinless. Again, righteousness we have completely misconstrued, and we call it sinless. So let me go back. Number one, what does a good shepherd do? Come on, pay attention. What does a good shepherd do? What does a good leader do? Just let's start with verse 2. What does he do? Protects, provides, comforts, feeds peaceful places. Leads in peaceful places. Yes. If one gets lost, he leaves the flock, leaves the 99 to go find the one that is lost. Hear me. Leaves the 99 to go find the one that is lost. Hear me. Yeah. Yeah. Whoa, Danny, huh? Yeah, he leads them through trouble, but comforts them through trouble, protects them through trouble. Did you hear me? Doesn't enable them. Does not enable them. What's the proof? We see that King David, most famous king that ever walked the earth, King David fought a bear and a lion as a shepherd boy at 16 years old. Do you hear me? Fought a bear and a lion to protect the sheep. One of the reasons why he was chosen to be the king of Israel. It says it in Psalm 78. Because he led in a way to protect those sheep, risked his life against a bear and a lion. How many of you men are pretty strong? But how many of you might not fight a bear or a lion? Now, if the bear and lion were coming after your wife and children, what would you do? What would you do? You will fight the bear and the lion if the bear and the lion are coming after your children. But if the bear and the lion are coming after your staff, you can just say, ouch. If the bear and the lion is coming after your staff, your distributors, your customers that whine, because let me tell you something, sheep bite. Sheep bite. So would you protect them? What about the bear and the lion coming after your community? What about the bear and the lion coming after your family? Well, Danny, it kind of depends on who. Kind of depends on who. If it was my uncle who molested me, I'm going to just step right aside and say, there he is, go after him. If it's my sister that stabbed me in the back, I'll just, right there. Let me point you in the direction of the one I want you to eat. Come on, how many of you think like that? Liars. How many of you think like that? So now we go to a picture of a bad shepherd, not a good shepherd. Back at Ezekiel 34. What are the shepherds of Israel who have been feeding themselves? Should not the shepherds feed the flock? You eat the fat and you put on the wool. You slaughter the fatlings. You do not feed the flock. So this other shepherd, which I will tell you, we have them all over the place today. Shepherds that are feeding off of the flock instead of feeding the flock. Shepherds that are feeding off of the wool and making money from it. The shepherds that are not protecting the flock, but slaughtering the flock for their own name's sake, for their own good, for their own wealth, for their own prosperity. This is what was happening in Israel during this time. This is about 2,500 years ago, 2,700 years ago. And the same exact thing is happening today. It's happening in our government. It's happening in churches. It's happening in businesses. It's happening in education. We are literally a people who are following the shepherd of more, of greed, more fame, more numbers, more accomplishments, more couches, more clothes, more stuff. Verse 4, you have not strengthened the weak. So what does the good shepherd do? What's the good shepherd do? Strengthens the weak. You have not healed the sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back the straying, nor sought what was lost, but you have ruled them with might and harshness. I want the picture right here again. You have not strengthened the weak. You have not healed the sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back the straying, nor sought what was lost, but you have ruled them with might and harshness. What shepherd are you following? What shepherd are you following? And they were scattered because there was no shepherd, and they became food for all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill, and my sheep were scattered all over the face of the earth, and no one was seeking or searching for them. What shepherd are you following? What shepherd are you following? Let me ask you a question. How many of you have felt scattered? Wave at me. What shepherd are you following? How many of you have felt weak? How many of you have been sick? How many of you have been wounded, broken? How many of you have felt lost and confused? How many of you have felt the might, the pressure, and harshness? Anybody? What shepherd are you following? Is it the good shepherd? Have you decided to be the shepherd yourself and follow yourself? Have you decided to be the good shepherd yourself? To be a shepherd yourself and lead yourself? Are you leading yourself? How many of you have led yourself with harshness? How many of you have led yourself to brokenness, sickness, frustration, pain? What shepherd are you following? You have to make a choice. What happens to a people with no shepherd? What happens to a people with no shepherd? Scattered. You're vulnerable. You're weakened. You're going to break. You're going to break. You're going to burn out. You're going to get sick. In Mark 9:36, it talks about the shepherds harassing and the people are helpless. But we see the good shepherd in Mark 6:33, where 5,000 people gather in a place that all of us that were just in Israel got to be at, in the same place, where there's no food. There's 5 loaves and 2 fish. And the good shepherd doesn't send the people away hungry. But the good shepherd multiplies the food to bless with no strings attached. Hold on. Let's go to Mark 6:33. I just want to see something. Mark 6:33. Thank you for asking. Mark 6:33. But they saw them going, and many recognized him and ran there on foot from all the cities. I'm not reading in the right place. No, Mark. And having gone out, Yeshua saw a large crowd and was moved with compassion for them, because they were like sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many matters. And the hour grew late. His taught ones came to him and said, "This is a lonely place, and now the hour is late. Send them away so they go into the surrounding country and villages and buy themselves bread, since they have no food to eat." But he answering said to them, "You give them to eat." And they said to him, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them to eat?" Then he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go see." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. He ordered them to make them to sit down in groups on the green grass, green pastures. And it really is green, by the way, right there, right in that place. It's beautiful. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, looking up to the heaven, he blessed and he broke it and gave them his taught ones, and set before them, and the 2 fishes he divided in among all of them. And then he passed an offering plate, and he taught a message about tithing. He passed the offering plate, and he taught on tithing, and they passed Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets all throughout the 5,000 people after he fed them the fish. And then he took up an offering for himself. How many of you are lost? You didn't find that in your Bible? Okay, you're reading right. I was just making that stuff up. I was just basically telling you what happens every Sunday. So he gave, the good shepherd gives with no strings attached. 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 He didn't have a building either. Did they have buildings 2,000 years ago? Oh, yes, we've stood in those buildings 2,000 years ago. Oh, yes, there were buildings 2,000 years ago. Nope, he gathered a group of people in a field with a big tent. Nope, just an open field. No mic, no sound system, 5,000 people. And if you went with us, you would see how that was possible. The way it's set up, your voice carries, exactly. It's like an amphitheater, basically, but it's just a rolling hill is what it is. What they call the Mount of Beatitudes, which doesn't exist in the Bible, by the way. It was sweet that the Catholics gave it that name. But it doesn't exist at all. Not at all. But that's okay. We can stay stupid and not go to Israel. Or we can get smart and go see it with our own eyeballs. So, now they got a church planted there so they can take up an offering to pay for the building. It's a huge church. It's a huge multi-million-dollar church. You got a nun standing out there guilting you into giving to pay for the building. It's like, you suckers don't want to build it. You're going to have to deal with it. That was your choice. That was your vision. Figure it out. Anyway, so we see the Good Shepherd as Yeshua, who fed the sheep, found a way to feed the sheep with no strings attached, not looking for anything in return. So we see that the Good Shepherd is a giver with no strings attached. And there was leftovers. There was plenty. So what shepherd are you following? How many of you have some of the fruit of following the wrong shepherd? Here's another question. How many of you are leading like that wrong shepherd? Where are you? It's great that you raised your hand. That's humility. This is a simple outline for us. It's simple instructions of leadership right here. You don't have to read 20 books from John Maxwell about how to lead. It's right here. It's crystal clear, really simple, super basic. I think he wrote 20, right? Is it 30, 50? More? It's a whole library. Great writer, wonderful man, great desire. But how come we read his books and not read this book? How come we read everybody else's book, but not the Good Shepherd's book? How come we read this and fall asleep, but it's crystal clear right here? He's telling exactly, teaching us how to follow and teaching us how to lead. So if you're stressed out, broken, sick, it simply means that you're following the wrong shepherd. And if you've made your people like that, it simply means that you got some shoring up to do with your people. You've created an environment. How many of the environment that you've created inside of your business or your home is not green pastures and still waters? Hello? So what must you go do? What must you go do? I'm going to fall asleep, Danny. Let me tell you what happens. Let me show you what happens when a nation doesn't have a good shepherd. Let me show you what happens when a people don't have a good shepherd. I want you to put your eyes on the screen. You come from town and then just all of a sudden there's the opening and you see the smoke and the trash. And then you see 3-year-olds digging through trash, 4-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. You see mothers and fathers digging through the trash, and this is where they're finding their livelihood, whether they're finding something to sell, they're finding the food. We literally saw somebody digging through, two little boys digging through and eating straight from the trash.
I can't process it. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine being this destitute, this just forlorn, this just helpless.
It's just crazy to think how the difference of being born in a different country is all that it took. So I'm so blessed that God placed me somewhere where I wouldn't have to suffer. My heart goes out to each and every one of them, but I'm more committed now than ever before to do something about it.
It's not even 60 seconds from the dump coming into now the new village that has been built, and that new village with beautiful homes. A neighborhood has been created out of nothing. Of course, we had this incredible welcome of all of these families that just 1 year ago did not have houses to live in. They were living in, you can't even call what they were living in, a shack. And here we stand in a house that you helped to build. Now this family of 5, they're now protected and safe. Angel and Rosa, they've been married for 50 years. When we first saw them, one of my daughters who can understand Spanish, she heard Rosa say, "We don't mean anything. They come, they look, and they do nothing." For us to hear that and just go, no, that's not going to be us. We're not going to speak hope. We're going to deliver hope. This is the first time in over 50 years of marriage that this couple has been married, that they are no longer in extreme poverty. For the first time in her life, she owns a real home. So we were walking down the old street, and this is the last part of where the last few homes are actually being built. And this little girl jumps into my arms. I've seen her several times, and she's telling me that, oh, my mom's house is over here, my mom's house is over here, as we're walking by. And then so we peeked in, and her mother, big smile, come in. She wants to show us her home. So we will show you her home. She just got this 2 days ago. Scrap metal. Her other roof is cardboard, and this is rainy season. This is the bed for all of them. I think all the details need to be grabbed. Look at the bed. She's a year younger than I am. She's 47. Can you ask her where her husband is?
¿Y usted tiene marido? ¿Dónde está?
No, soy solo.
So she's alone, she has no
No husband. Can you ask her how many total children she has?
Okay, tiene 3 hijos, ¿verdad? Sí, she has 3 children.
3 children. How long has she lived here?
¿Y cuántos años tiene de estar viviendo aquí?
Because she's trying to take care of a wound right there.
2 años y medio.
2 años, 2 years and a half.
2 years and a half she's been living here. So let's look at the floors. This is the dirt floor. Again, cardboard ceiling held up with scrap wood and styrofoam. And if you turn that camera around, you're going to see her view. And this is where she works 12-hour days to help to provide for her 2 children that she has living here with her.
The woman here is saying that she doesn't have any help, that the only thing she has to survive is what we're seeing over there. And if we're leaving these people alone, depending just on that, believe me, they won't last long. These people is humble people that let us know that by we just having food on the table and a roof to cover us, we're blessed. These people really don't have anything to survive other than that.
I would call surviving. It's dying.
That's dying.
That's dying. It's not surviving. She has made it for 2 years. So yeah, we're gonna get you a home.
A usted le van a dar una
We're gonna
casa.
get you a home.
A usted le van a dar una
You are going to have a home. You're going to have a hope. He has heard your cry. He has heard your prayer. He has seen the tears falling down. He has held your tears in a bottle. Your children and your children are not going to suffer the way it is that you have suffered. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Yes, and I pray healing over her, healing over her son, healing over her daughter. I pray restoration. Yes, I pray redemption. Redeem your daughter, Father. Redeem your daughter, Father. Redeem her and heal her. Heal her emotions. Heal her soul. Heal her mind, Father. Come to her aid. You are the King who ransoms your people. You are the King. You are the King. You are the King that ransoms your people. Father, thank you for sending aid. Thank you for helping her house. Yes, deliverance. I break the curse of poverty off of this woman right now in Jesus' name. That Father, it won't be that the next time I come, I see this woman in her beautiful house. I see her with her new stove. I see her, Father, with clean clothes. And I see her children being able to be bathed appropriately with clean water to drink, no longer degrading herself. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, in Jesus' name.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. You are Yahweh Yireh. Yes, you are Yahweh Yireh. That's who you are. You are the one who provides. Yes, you are the one who provides. In Jesus' name.
Gracias, ¿verdad? A los donantes que hicieron posible este momento de felicidad, a NF y a todo su personal, a todos los que me han apoyado, a los que han trabajado, a los que han estado, ¿verdad?, en todo, detrás de todo esto. Es una gran bendición para mí y también para mi familia. Y le pido al Señor que los bendiga en gran manera, porque este momento para mí es grande y muy feliz me siento. Y deseo que también le ayuden a otra gente que no tienen casa, porque verdaderamente es triste que venga la lluvia y mojarse uno con sus hijos.
That's the result of a bad shepherd. That level of poverty is a result of a bad shepherd. That's the fruit. Not healing their wounds. And the last part of that video is the result of a good shepherd. The good shepherd. What shepherd are you following? What shepherd are you following? If you're following the wrong shepherd, you're becoming the wrong shepherd to the people you're leading. You're passing down to the next generation stress and distress, weakness, sickness. You're following the bad shepherd. You're teaching your children how to follow the bad shepherd. The shepherd of greed, the shepherd of more, the shepherd of never being satisfied, the shepherd that breaks and harasses. Shepherds in our nation just want to take. Create something so you'll buy it. To drain your accounts of your children's wealth. Have you be stuck, forever yearning and wanting. But when you follow the Good Shepherd, he leads you through green pastures, still waters, and he leads you into all righteousness. And the Bible says that a righteous person cares for the poor. That a righteous person relieves the poor, binds up the brokenhearted, releases from captivity those who are in darkness, those who are imprisoned in poverty. And yet the shepherds of our nations are leading people to slaughter. Our prior administration right here in this town wrote an entire training system to send out through all the public schools, demanding the schools to teach your kids to go into debt, leading the next generation to slaughter, teaching the parents through the school to tell the parents to have their 5-year-old borrow money from you to charge them interest so that you can teach them about the life of debt. That when they're 10 years old, expand the amount that you're lending to them so they can make monthly payments and get used to monthly payments. Then when they're 17, take it to the bank to fill out their first credit application. When they're 18, get them qualified for a loan. The last administration that was in the White House, 1956, the beloved LBJ was a senator. The beloved LBJ. I live in a town that worships that man's name. I live 20 minutes from Fredericksburg, Texas. Airport named after Lady Bird Johnson, his wife. But in 1956, LBJ came up with a really good idea. He went to the churches and the pastors, the shepherds, the spiritual shepherds, and he said this: we would like to create a win-win situation for you. We will offer your parishioners a tax deduction when they want to pay their tithes. That if they donate to your church and you become a 501c3, if they donate to your church, then they'll get a tax deduction, which means they'll give more because now it's a tax deduction. But in the little fine print, it said, in exchange for this, you can no longer talk about politics. You can no longer talk about bills and laws that are passing. You can no longer sway your people to a political position and political values that line up with the Bible. And that was the day when that thing went through, that the church, the shepherds of the United States of America, the spiritual shepherds, said yes to the God of more, the God of greed. And the church came under a spiritual covering of idolatry and greed. She gave up her voice to teach values that were biblical about protecting the poor, about not shedding innocent blood, not passing your children through the idol of Molech, not sacrificing your kids for money. This is when the shepherds, the spiritual shepherds of our land, exchanged money for God. And they put the little g God, idolatry, greed, Baal, Ashtoreth, on the throne of our nation. Ashtoreth, she's also known as Estar, also known as Easter. A goddess who's a fertility goddess. And the way that they worshiped her thousands of years ago, all through the Middle East. Slaughtered pigs. How's your Sunday ham coming next Sunday? Worshipped her with bunnies and eggs. They decorated them. Yeah, and they have a feast every year. And in our churches, we're coloring eggs, doing Easter egg hunts, worshiping the goddess of Estar. You ever read in your Bible where it says the Ashtoreth poles, the high places? This was the worship of the fertility goddess, Ashtoreth, Estar, Easter in English. This is what happens when there's not a good shepherd. And when we choose to come out from under our good shepherd, who leads us through green pastures, still waters, who leads us into all righteousness. So when a people decide to come out from under the one true God, Emet Echad Elohim, when we decide to remove ourselves from the Good Shepherd, now we're being led by the shepherd of greed, the shepherd of more, the shepherd of idolatry. That we can't get enough stuff. We can't get enough food. We can't get enough recognition. We can't get enough glory. We can't get enough approval. We can't get enough love. We can't get enough money. We can't get enough promotions. We can't get enough satisfaction. We can't get enough. So the wives drive their husbands for more because she's coveting her neighbor's stuff. And the husbands are coveting his neighbor's stuff. So all in the name of more, sacrificing the kids for more and not training up our children to follow under the Good Shepherd who leads us through green pastures that are peaceful, still waters for his name's sake. But instead, more that leads to broken, sick, flustered, scattered. Which shepherd are you following? So we make money. We hoard it. We see a video like that with Antonia. A tear might shed out of the corner of our eye and say, that's her problem. Numbed out. Hungry, dirty children digging through a dump site. And we say, that's just too bad. Apathetic and unrighteous. But we go to church and we raise our hands on Sunday and we sing some hymns. We give when they pass the plate, never asking where that money's going and how much of it is going to the poor. Never ask. Why? We don't care. We don't care. Why? Because we're not following the Good Shepherd. You know what the fruit is of following the Good Shepherd? You care. You know what the fruit of following the Good Shepherd? Your heart hurts for the broken. You know what happens when you follow the Good Shepherd? You hear the cry of the poor. And the Good Shepherd said this, he who shuts his ear to the cry of the poor, that when he cries, he will shut his ear to you. We're all caught up in the prevailing principality of darkness over this nation of greed, sacrificing our marriages and our kids for more, and getting a heart that is hardened, and we don't care what's happening a couple hours away on an airplane. Can you tell me why? This is in Nicaragua, by the way. The shepherd of that nation is killing his own citizens who don't agree with his politics. He's starved them out. He's stolen, literally stolen the groceries out of their own grocery stores that they own. He has looted their furniture stores, that they took everything they had for generations to gum up a bunch of money to be able to start a little business so they can provide for their family. And the president looted their stores. He has shot them that will not agree with him. He has fired them, shut down schools, cut off the food. He has killed those medical professionals who are giving aid to those that don't agree with his politics. And right here in this nation, can you please tell me why we're not helping? Huh? Well, it's right here. But instead, we'd rather fight a war that's thousands of miles away. Wait, we'd rather start a war that's thousands of miles away Why would we start a war that's out in the middle of the desert? Why would we do this? Was the president of that nation doing what Daniel Ortega is doing to Nicaragua? Nope. Just some people, some shepherds in our nation decided that it'd be a good idea to grab some oil. We only start wars where we can benefit financially. We only protect those that we say are hurting if there's a benefit for us financially. I told you that the Good Shepherd gives without strings attached. So why haven't we sent people down to Nicaragua to say, you're not going to treat these people like this anymore? This is inhumane. Why hasn't the United Nations stood against Daniel Ortega and said enough is enough? You continue this, we're sending people in. We're going to remove you. This has been going on for a year. April the 18th, 1 year ago, is when the president declared war on his own poor citizens. And our nation just goes, well, that's just too bad. Why isn't the news covering it? There's no money in it. Why is he doing it to the poor? While Daniel Ortega has been in office, he became a billionaire off of his own people. Just like many of the presidents of the United States in the past. They've all become insanely wealthy. Trump was already wealthy. Listen to me. So if you follow the Good Shepherd, you have proof of it in your life. He leads you down green pastures, still waters. You and your children. And if you're not there, you're not following the Good Shepherd. It's that simple. If you're not there, you're not in order following the Good Shepherd. You're either leading yourself or you're following the wrong shepherd. You're leading yourself to rocky places, cliffs, hills. You're leading your place to dry, arid land. You're leading yourself and everyone else that is around you to places where they're going to get hurt. Now, I'm not saying that the Good Shepherd isn't going to lead you to a place you're not going to get hurt. No, but he will protect you. And here's King David knowing, I'm a sheep, I'm following a shepherd, and I'm safe. So if you're going through trouble and you are anxious about it, if you're going through trouble and you're fearful about it, what shepherd are you following? The wrong one. You're following the wrong shepherd. It might be a physical thing, it's probably a spiritual thing. It's your own thing in your own mind that you've made up that you have to have more. And you have bowed down to the God of greed. And the fruit bowing down to the God of greed is debt, hopelessness, depression, being overwhelmed, too much pressure. Bowing down to that little g God also brings you a whole nother one called the God of regret that many of you are bowing down to. How many of you have some deep regrets? How many of you had regret pain you so strong that you've cried for hours because it hurts so bad? That's a sign that you've bowed down to something that's killing you slowly. So which shepherd are you going to follow? And how do you make it right? How do you make it right? Friends, he also says that my sheep know my voice. My sheep hear my voice. My sheep know my voice. How many of you tend to not listen? You might be saying, I don't hear him. He says, my sheep know my voice. They hear my voice. Let me tell you something. He's talking to you. Just not listening. He's talking to you. You're not obeying. You're either that horse I talked about earlier today that's fighting against the reins, whipping your head around, bucking your butt, kicking up your legs because he's talking, and you're refusing to obey. But I don't want to go to the green pastures. But I don't want to go to the still waters. I don't want to take care of the poor. I don't want to do with righteousness. I'd rather go to church, raise my hands, and look righteous. I'd rather know all the songs and be able to quote scripture so I can convince everybody that I'm following the Good Shepherd. I want to make sure that I got the jersey and I'm accepted on the team. Friends, he's talking. He talks all the way through his book. Are we listening? Or have we been listening to a different shepherd for too long? And our ears are tuned in to the shepherd of failure, to the shepherd of fear, to the shepherd of doubt, regret, guilt, shame, worry, anxiety, blame, hatred, unforgiveness, malice. You're being shepherded by the past, the voice of your past. How about the voice of the past of what your husband or your wife did 3 years ago, last week, 10 years ago? What about the voice of what your mom or your dad did when you were growing up? You still listening to that voice from the past? Being shepherded by it? Listen. My sheep know my voice. Well, I have to tell you, there's been several times in my walk with him where I didn't hear him because I stepped out of order and I stepped into listening to the voice of fear. I stepped into listening to the voice of greed. I stepped into listening to the voice of more. I stepped into listening that my vision and my dream and my goals are more important than anything. That my desires are more important than anything. They became more important than my marriage, my vision, my calling. Became more important than my marriage. So if my husband doesn't agree with my vision and my calling, well, then he's out of order. Nope, I'm out of order. So there came a place where we were so stressed out and almost $1 million in debt because we began to follow, and we were following, didn't even realize it, that other shepherd. So almost $1 million in debt. I'm 31. Hans is 26 or 27. We're in a $700,000 house. $100,000 worth of credit card debt. I'm diagnosed with a fatal heart condition. Reverse entrance supraventricular tachycardia for all of you physicians. I have the best cardiologist in the world, Dr. Saxon out of UC San Francisco, who diagnoses me. Second opinion, another doctor, cardiologist. I'm 31 years old, and I'm passing out 3 to 4 times a day. And I'm saying, God, where are you? God, where are you? Why is this happening to me? Why are you putting me through this? I'm blaming God. For what? Oh, the debt, the stress, the pressure of all of that debt that's weighing on us. The stress, the pressure of almost a 6,000 square foot house to clean with 4 little kids in the home. The debt, the stress, the pressure of the yard and the 15 rose bushes and all the flowers. The stress, the pressure, the debt, the fighting between Hans and I, not getting along. God, where are you? And every time I would go into my closet to pray, I would feel nothing, absolutely nothing. Felt like I was praying through a brick wall and couldn't penetrate. How many of you have ever been there before? You pray, you feel nothing. It's dead. It's worse than crickets. It's just dead. There's nothing. There's nothing happening inside of you. There's nothing moving in your mind, nothing moving in your spirit. And day after day, 5, 6 times a day, when I would start to overheat, when I'd start to feel myself passing out, when I would start to feel hopeless again. 5, 6 times a day. Hans, can you take Micah? He was 7 months old. Will you take Micah? I got to go upstairs. I got to go pray. Sure, no problem. Go upstairs. For years, God was talking to us about idolatry. For years, he was talking to us about being the lender instead of the borrower. For years, he started to teach us about how real financial independent people live. They don't live in all of that stuff. They don't buy the new cars every year. They don't live on debt. They don't buy the new clothes every year. They don't live to impress anybody. They create financial independence, and from that financial independence, they pay cash for stuff. Versus the ones that look successful on the outside but are flat broke. Average divorce 3 times. So he began to teach us for years before this moment, years before this stress now can kill me, and my side effect is sudden death. Years he tried to teach us. Wasn't listening. Hans read the book, The Millionaire Next Door. He tells me about the study, these case studies of real millionaires who create wealth versus the fake millionaires who make it and spend it all. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. A month later, we bought $1 million house. A month later. How stupid can we be? I meet a family that has 4 teenage sons. The dad makes $3,000 a month. I'm scratching my head like, how in the world does his wife doesn't work, 4 teenage sons, he's the sole provider, $3,000 a month. How in the world is this guy surviving? So I start digging in, and I'm asking him questions like, what's your food bill? He tells me, I'm like, dang, what's our food bill? I go and look. Ooh, we're spending $1,200 a month. I got babies in the house. He's got men growing in his house. There's 5 men and 1 woman. And he feeds his family on $400 a month? And we went and bought $1 million house. God was teaching us. So now here I'm telling him he's not listening to me. Where are you in my time of darkness? How come you're not answering? Where are you? Are you going to heal me? And then I came to this place. After months of nothing. Father. All right. Okay. So, if I never hear from you again, that's okay. It's okay. And if I never sense your presence again, that's okay. And if I never see another miracle for the rest of my life again, it's okay. And if I never get healed from this fatal heart condition, it's okay. Because what you did for me at the cross 2,000 years ago was enough. What you did for me 2,000 years ago was enough. So I'm still going to show up here every freaking day. And I'm still going to talk to you whether I think you're listening or not. So I'm still going to pray. And I'm still going to take care of the poor. And I'm still going to teach my children about you. I'm still going to teach my kids about you. I'm still going to shout from the mountaintops of what you did for me 2,000 years ago. So if I never hear your voice, if I never see a miracle, if I never have a door open for me, and if I never have favor on my life again, and if I don't get healed, that's okay. You owe me nothing. I owe you my life. What got birthed out of that was still months of feeling nothing, seeing nothing. For months, I no longer was using my God as an ATM machine or a 1-900 call. He was not my Facebook friend. He was my shepherd. So I left that floor every day knowing this: what's the right thing to do? Regardless if I hear his voice or not, I have his voice in this book. And he tells me the right thing to do. Even if I didn't have the book, because Abraham didn't have the book, Moses didn't have the book, Joshua didn't have the book, Isaiah didn't have the book, neither did Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. In fact, what they wrote wasn't a book. It didn't even exist. They were letters that they wrote 70 years after Yeshua died. So even if I didn't have the book, Jeremiah 33 says that I will write my law on their hearts. And I will be their God. And they will be my people. So even if I didn't have the book and I didn't understand the book, we know what's right and we know what's wrong. So if you're not hearing the voice of your shepherd, do the right thing. So months later, and I mean months later, quite a lot months later, this stubborn mule just started to do the right thing, and I was forced to come out from the shepherd of greed. Why? Because the doctor said I couldn't work anymore. The doctor said I couldn't fly anymore, which meant we were going to decrease our income by $1 million a year. $1 million a year, gone. We also knew, with me not working anymore, that our other business was also going to tank. And guess what? It did. From hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to $60,000 a year. That one business. The other business, $1 million a year. Gone. So what got birthed out of it? Financial independence. He taught us how to manage money. He taught us how to become debt-free. He taught us to get out of the needy position and be in the giving position with no strings attached. So that house that was built for Antonia, she can't possibly thank us for it other than the words that were captured on a cell phone, somebody else's cell phone who texted it to me, texted it to us. There's no way she can repay us for that home. That's a sign of the Good Shepherd. No strings attached. No strings attached. Greed, more, has strings attached. The Good Shepherd, no strings attached. So either we're going to obey and come under his lead, or we're going to continue to lead ourselves and lead ourselves into unrighteousness and brokenness, harshness, pressure, stress, and overcapacity. Or we're going to make some big, strong decisions to come under his leadership. And we know what the fruit will be when we do it. Close your eyes. Father, thank you that you really are the Good Shepherd. Thank you. Thank you for how you love. Thank you for giving us a chance. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for stepping outside of your lead with what looks righteous but is out of order. I'm sorry for messes I've created, places I've led myself. I'm sorry. Father, I pray that you touch on the hearts of your people who've been scattered. Wounded, confused. Father, forgive us for listening to the voice of greed and idolatry. That we've cared more about that when we've cared about the care of the broken. We've cared more about our accomplishments than we've cared about the sick in our own family. Forgive us as a nation if we have forsaken the poor, shifted the responsibility to somebody else. Forgive us, Father, that we've sacrificed our children as a nation. Move on our hearts, God. Thank you for teaching us how to be good shepherds. It's so simple, it's so clear. We don't have to read thousands of books to get it. It's in your original book. Thank you that you have no strings attached. And thank you that you teach us how to make it right. Thank you for exposing what you've exposed all day today. Thank you for giving us a way to come home back to you, to return back to you. Thank you that you let us, that you welcome us, that you forgive us. If there's anybody here that you want to make things right with your good shepherd, that you feel like you have stepped out of order, stepped out from his leading, I want to give you the opportunity right now to make it right with him. So if that's you, just put up your hand. You can put your hand down. David, did you get your answer? Did you get your answer to your question? Tonight was the answer to your question. How do you do it all? You don't. You've signed up for too much. You stepped out of the green pastures and into the rocky hills. That means you got some adjustments to make. If you got to make things right with your shepherd, I invite you to come and stand in front of the stage. And I want to pray with you, if you'll allow me to. Billy, your question, why is it that the people that are closest to you create the most opposition? The Good Shepherd's been talking to you. And the voice of those that you think are opposing you are not. The Good Shepherd's trying to protect you, trying to show you, come into my green pastures. Come into my still waters. Come over here, son. You got things opposing you. People that are close to you, they love you. They love you. They adore you. They believe in you. They're for you. But in your eyes, you can't see it. You're fighting, defending, accusing. Let the accuser of the brethren lay down. You don't like to be told, and you don't trust. Nakia, how do I lead my people? You got your answer tonight. How do I lead my people with no strings attached? How do I raise up leaders? No strings attached. How do I love those that oppose me? No strings attached. You don't just love the lovable. Welcome to opposition, because he prepares a table for you in the midst of your enemies. And those that are closest to you are not your enemies. They're for you. There has to come a place, my son, that you trust me. It's him to you. You have to come to a place where you trust. Even the opposition, that you trust. You don't have to protect yourself anymore. You don't have to defend yourself anymore. And you don't have to prove yourself anymore. You're safe. You're good. You're valuable. His chosen son. You're safe. You're good. You're valued. His chosen son. Let go of the distrust. Let go of the defense. Let go. The question this morning, what must you release? Distrust is what you must release. The Good Shepherd requires for us to trust him. Your question, young lady. Your question. Should I take on more shifts so I can pay off the debt faster? Should I take on more shifts so I can pay off the debt faster? What does the Good Shepherd say? No, baby. No, baby, no. No. Peaceful, still waters, green pastures. Trust the Good Shepherd. He blesses the fruit of your hands. He brings healing in your hands. Trust him to multiply your efforts. Trust him to make a way. Don't lead yourself as the beast of burden. You're not a beast of burden. You do not have to prove your value. He values you. He's chosen you. So you don't have to prove it. And all the regret of your debt, the debt is your past. It's forgiven already. Now it's time for the fruition. It's time to just make it right. But you don't have to beat yourself up and beat yourself into the ground and beat yourself into bad health to be able to have that properly gone away. He's a good shepherd. He's a loving father. He's your protector, your guide, the lover of your soul, who approves of you. Step away from the bad shepherd and stop leading yourself. Stop leading yourself. Do you realize if you do what I'm saying tonight, or what he said, because I just read his words, do you realize that you will become the most attractive people to everyone around you? Think about it. You will become so attractive to your spouse. You'll become so attractive to your family members. They will be drawn to you because of the peace that's in you. Because you will possess what everybody wants. Everyone wants peace. We all were wired to desire peace. So when you grab it, you behold it, and you lay. Look at that. He makes me lay. He makes me. Do you hear that? He makes me. What does that tell you? Slow down. He makes me lay. Why does he make us lay down in green pastures? Don't you think that's a very interesting way to say that? Why does he make you do that? Because you're not doing it. Because you're not doing it. So how does he make you lay down in green pastures? Circumstances. You got it, baby. Circumstances. Another question, and I'm not going to call your name out, but you know who you are. Why is it that I can have so much compassion and patience for other people, but not so much for my family? Why is it that I could use better people skills with other people, but not with my family and those that are close to me? Because you're not following the Good Shepherd. That's why. You're following a different shepherd, and you have elevated the people higher than your family. You have elevated, honoring your customers, your congregation, honoring your friends higher than honoring your family. You're not walking with the Good Shepherd. You're walking with the shepherd of greed. No, I'm not, Danny. Oh, yes, you are. You like the recognition you get from the other people. You like the kudos you get from the other people. Why? They don't sleep with your butt. They don't see your flaws. They only see the part of you that you show. But your spouse and your kids, they see all. Your siblings, they have seen all the stupid stuff you've done. So you feel vulnerable around the people that know you most. So you guard yourself against them. That's not walking with the Good Shepherd. That's not walking in humility. So why does he make us lie down in green pastures? Because we won't do it. We don't do it. We're so busy running for the highest mountain to climb. And right over the hill is a bear and a lion. Right over the hill is rocks and a cliff and no water. So we gotta backtrack. Gotta come back to another place. When we're wounded and we're hurt, we're forced to lay down. Wouldn't it be great if we choose to just follow him? That's what you're going to say you're going to do tonight. Just follow him. Just trust him. So just pray this after me. Heavenly Father, I hear you. Thank you for your rod tonight that has comforted me. Thank you that I could come back to you after I have messed up so bad. Thank you that you accept me back to you. Forgive me for thinking that I was walking with you. Forgive me for the game and the show I've been playing. Trying to look like I'm following you on the outside. But inside my heart, I clearly have not. Oh, there's some things I'm doing right, but largely, I'm not walking with you like I should be. I feel your rod guiding me. I feel your staff popping me on the backside to get back to the green pastures and the still waters and to righteousness. Thank you that as I stand before you now, I'm standing in righteousness. Heal me from head to toe. I've got some scratches, some bruises, some broken bones due to my own stubbornness and rebellion, and trying to lead myself to faster, bigger, better places. Forgive me for bowing down to anxiety, fear, and doubt. I choose to trust you. In the chaos, I choose to trust you. In my pain, I choose to trust you. In slander, I choose to trust you. When I feel attacked by my friends or my family members, people I've worked with, I choose to trust you. Right now, I believe that the Father is showing several of you what you need to let go of. There are several of you that you need to cut your hours way back. And you know it. You know it inside your spirit. There are several of you, you know what you've allowed to rise up inside of your heart to be your God. How many of you have let your career rise up in your heart? Do you know what's a sign of that? Is you can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop thinking about it. Robs your sleep. First thing in the morning, you're thinking about it. Before you go to bed at night, you're thinking about it. All day long, you're thinking about it. How many of you this has happened to you? Okay? Your business became your God. How many of you, your debt, that's the prevailing thought in your head? Money. Money, 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 money. I got to figure it out. I got to make more. Guess what became your God? Money. What about worry? Anybody worry? What about your health? Anybody your health? What about your future? Your future? Let it go. Let it go. The Good Shepherd leads you. Quit trying to force deals to happen. He opens doors that no man can shut. He closes doors that no man can open. How many of you, it's your children, you're really worried about your kids? Yeah. You're worried about their future. You're worried about the fact that you think you screwed them up. Anybody? You're scared that you screwed them up and you're afraid of the choices you're going to make. Hey, let me ask you a question. How many of you screwed up? Where are you standing today? Guess what? They have to learn. You weren't surprised when your 2-year-old was falling down, were you? You weren't surprised when your 1-year-old baby was trying to pull themselves up and hit their head on the coffee table, were you? Were you surprised? No. Did you sit there and go, what's wrong with you? Did you say, what's wrong with you? No. You knew that this was the process of learning to get stronger. Guess what? Your kids are going to fall down as teenagers. They're going to fall down in their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s. They're going to fall down. And consequences are going to teach them, just like consequences taught you. But where do you stand today? in righteousness before your God. My son was being wooed by a young lady. And at 18, his dad didn't know how to handle it. And his dad wasn't ready right after his daughter got married that his son was going to go chase a girl. And Hans at the time was working too much. He had lots of regret. He was on a path that was not good. The two of them butted heads. One night, Gabe left, went to Missouri. And I fell on the floor and I bawled, God, please protect his purity. Please, Father, protect my son. Please help him not get into drugs. Please, Father, all the decisions that he's made, please protect him. Keep him. And I heard loud and clear, who are you to say that I don't have a prodigal son story for my son? What? Forgive me. He is your son. He is your son. And if a prodigal son story is what you have for my son, I trust you. He's your son. So I started to pray, have your will and have your way in him. Teach him whatever it is that you have to teach him. And write his story. And I released that worry and that anxiety about my son. And I chose to trust. Guess who's walking with his God today? My son. Not because his mom preached at him. Not because his mom pressured him. Not because his mom stood against him. But his mom said, I love you no matter what choices you make. If you choose to do drugs, that's not going to change my love for you. If you choose to give up your virginity, I will still love you. If you choose to walk in the opposite direction of what you've been taught, I love you. There's nothing that's going to change my love for you. I'll be sad. My heart will break if you hurt yourself, but I'll be there for you in all of your choices. So don't let me or the DJC community try to pressure you into doing something you don't want to do. You be you. And I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to love you no matter what. And when you're ready to come home, I'm here. I'm here. On my birthday. Everybody went around the room, and in our family, we have a tradition of speaking a word of encouragement over the birthday person. Say one word that describes their mom. And his word was unconditional. Thank God it wasn't judge. Unconditional. That taught him something. He's unconditional. He's walking through some things with his wife and needing to be unconditional. I have no idea what's going to happen with the two of them. All I can do is trust the Good Shepherd. So when you worry about your kids, you're bowing down to another God. You're bowing down to another God. It's natural for us to worry. But when we're fretting about it, we can't stop thinking about it, and then we try to control and manipulate, now we're in unrighteousness. Now we're in unrighteousness. The Good Shepherd's got your back with no strings attached. None. I want you to just say this with me. Say, Father, I believe that what you did for me 2,000 years ago was enough. if you never bless me again, what you did 2,000 years ago was enough. If I never feel you again, what you did for me 2,000 years ago was enough. So I believe that you made the ultimate sacrifice of your son, that he spilled his blood for me to wash me clean. And I'm cleansed and purified right now. Forgive me for bringing up my past and throwing the past in other people's faces, reminding other people of their past and their failures. Forgive me for keeping records of wrong. I choose right now to be cleansed, purified, and forgiven with the blood of the Messiah. His name is Yeshua. He's my Messiah. And I believe that he did that. And you did that for me. So I stand in righteousness right now. As far as the east is from the west, you remember my sin no more. You do not hold it against me. The full price for my failures prior to this moment have been fully paid for. I'm a free, men say man, women say woman. I'm a free woman. You owe me nothing, God. Just stay right here for a minute. Father, right now in the mighty name of Yeshua, I come against the spirit of regret. I come against the spirit of regret that travels with condemnation, that speaks criticism. Father, I cancel every single word that regret has spoken from my mouth and every single word that is spoken from the mouths of these people. Life and death is in the power of our tongue. How many of you have spoken regret? Father, I release regret. Say that after me. I release regret. I bind the spirit of regret. I rebuke the spirit of regret. I command the spirit of regret to shut up and go to hell where you belong. Spirit of regret, take your hands off of my hands, off of my feet. I command you out of me. I command you out of my bowels, out of my stomach, my kidneys, my liver. I command you out of my esophagus, off of my voice, off of my tongue. I break regret off of me right now in the name of Yeshua. Yes. I break and I bind the spirit of guilt, the spirit of shame. I command you off of my life, off of my finances. You are not my compass. You are not my shepherd. I break the spirit of fear. Fear, you are not my shepherd. You are not my leader. You are not my compass. I break the spirit of poverty and lack off of me right now in the name of Yeshua. Yes. Thank you, Father. Yes. I rebuke the spirit of pain. Yes. I command pain off of me now. I rebuke debt. I rebuke doubt. I rebuke hopelessness, helplessness, worthlessness. I rebuke it all right now with the authority that's in me. Yes, yes. command you out right now. Leave me alone. Leave my children alone. Leave my future alone. I break the beast of burden right now in the name of Yeshua. Yes. Yes. I break the spirit of unforgiveness. Unforgiveness of myself. Condemnation of myself. I rebuke you. You have no power, no authority over me. You are not my compass. You are not my shepherd. Yes. Whew. Thank you, Father. Yes. I break the spirit of fear, worry, anxiety. I break the spirit of idolatry. I will not bow down any longer to idolatry. You are not my compass. You are not my shepherd. You are nothing but a liar. Yes. Yes. If you need healing and the consequences of your life have produced pain and suffering, then ask for forgiveness for that pain and suffering. Ask for forgiveness for what you've done to yourself. Own that stuff and then ask him to heal you. It's a really simple prayer. It's, Father, forgive me for the choices I have made. Forgive me for not loving my body. Forgive me for not caring for myself. Forgive me for not making wise choices. I have the knowledge, but I have not obeyed your lead. I've chosen to be rebellious with my physical body. I've chosen to put toxins in and not living food in. Forgive me for what I've done to my mind. Forgive me for the toxins I've put into my mind. Forgive me for the things I have fed on with my mind. What I've dwelled on with my mind. Thank you, Father. I take full responsibility. I stand before you. I have received some of those consequences already. But I ask you to forgive me. You said, if I confess my sins before man and before you, there's like 700 people here. And I just said this in front of all of them. So I have obeyed and I've confessed. I take full responsibility. If you would be willing, will you heal me? Forgive me for my stubbornness, my rebellious ways. Could you find it in your heart to forgive me, to heal me? And if you choose not to, teach me why. And I choose to trust you. So I'm letting go of the sickness. And I'm letting go of the bad habits. And I'm going to choose to walk in healing. And choose to put things inside my mind and inside my body that brings healing. Ivy, you just got your answer. Somebody asked a question like, what should I focus on? What should I study in the Bible to be healed? Look up every scripture on healing. Dwell on it. Eat it. Focus on it. Say it over and over again. Say, I receive that. I receive that. Receive it deep inside of your soul. Father, I pray for deaf ears to open. Father, I pray for deaf ears to open. Father, I pray for deaf ears to open. Yeshua said that we would do greater things, that we would see greater things, that everything that we saw him do, which meant that we would be able to resurrect the dead, which means that blind eyes would open. Father, I've watched you open blind eyes. I've seen you do it. I've watched you open deaf ears right here at a First Step Success. In Los Angeles, 4 people with deaf ears open. So, Father, I know you are fully capable of doing this. I know you are available to do this. Remove whatever has to be removed out of the way. That you, Father, would open deaf ears. Father, I pray you impart the hope in people who need deaf ears open. And I'm not just talking about physical deaf ears. I'm talking about spiritual deaf ears. Father, open my spiritual deaf ears. Take the potatoes out. Dig out all of the wax. All of the crud. Father, give me ears to hear you, the Good Shepherd's voice, loud and clear. Yes. Yes. Take the scales off my eyes. I want to see you. I want to experience you. Yes. Take my hardened heart out of my chest. And give me your heart. I lay down my desires. I give you my goals, my money, my vision. I lay it down before your feet. I give it to you. I give it away. I'm done with it. You say that man makes plans in his heart, but you ordain their steps. I've made plans in my heart. Some of them are out of order. Some of them have taken my heart away from you, from my spouse, from my kids. My plans for a better future. Have taken my heart away. I'm sorry about that. Take my heart and all of my desires. Take them out of me. Every one of them. Including my desire to be debt-free. Take it out of my heart because it's ruling my life. It's causing me to make stupid choices. So I lay that desire before you. And if you want me to have that desire, replant it. Replant it with peace and not pressure. Yes. Thank you, Father. My desire for success, I give it to you. Crush it. Take it away. And if you want me to have it, then I will receive it with peace, not striving. Peace, not pressure. Help me to love like you love. Help me to see me the way you see me. Help me to see my family the way you see them. Help me to see my career the way you see that career. Help me to see my enemies the way you see my enemies. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Say, I receive your spirit of love, truth, peace, joy, life, more abundantly, not more strivingly. Oh, yes. I receive your spirit of creativity and adventure. Yeah. I receive satisfaction and fulfillment. And I commit all my ways to you, the Good Shepherd, tonight. I receive your shabbat, which is rest, which is calmness, which is completeness. I receive your shalom, which is perfect peace. Shabbat shalom. You know, in Israel, one of my favorite places on earth, can't seem to get enough of it. When you pass by a stranger and you're walking through a door of a grocery store, a gas station, getting on a bus, a perfect stranger says to you, shalom. And your response back is, shalom. Think about that. That's a blessing that they speak over strangers, foreigners, their community. They don't say hello or goodbye. Their hello and goodbye is shalom. They're literally speaking a blessing of life. Shalom, peace, completeness, blessing, peace, complete, lacking nothing. And we say hi. Yo, hey. What is that? We say bye, ciao, ta-ta, see ya. There's no blessing in that. I love it the minute I step in that soil. Shalom, shalom. And you feel it. It'd be so awesome if that biblical tradition carried in all of our nations. Could you imagine walking in the door, seeing your spouse, shalom, and your spouse saying shalom back to you? Peace, comfort, completeness. Danny, that's weird. Nope, it's biblical. It's biblical. The Bible is a culture of blessing. It's a culture of blessing. So, shalom. I'll start. You start. Eventually, it could all catch on. And tonight, by the way, is Hagadol Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. You're like, what? Hagadol, it's the great Shabbat. It's the week before Passover. So this is the great Shabbat, the great rest. Can you feel it in this place? Amen. Can you feel the rest in your soul? Do you know what we did tonight? We moved some crap out of the way. We moved some crap out of the way. We did exactly what the Bible says to do. We did exactly what the Levites did. The Levites had to set up a tent out in the middle of the desert, wherever the cloud would lead. And every Friday night, people would bring their offerings and bring their tithes every Friday night for sacrifices to honor their God. And the food, because the tithe was food, would be brought to the people and they would eat it. The poor and the Levites. It's a time of celebration, and then go home and rest. Pajama day. But the whole point of Shabbat is to open up and make room inside your heart for more of Him. How many of you did that tonight? Tonight, you just experienced Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.